Welcome to the first video in the Models and Views in Qt Quick series. In this video, we're going to build a contacts application from scratch using the Model View Delegate architecture in QML. We'll start with the basics, setting up a list model, creating a delegate, and wiring it all together with a list view. Then we'll take it further by customizing our list with headers, footers, highlights, and sections. By the end, you'll have a fully styled functional list view. Let's get started. We will start with an empty QML application created using the new project creator in Qt Creator. The first thing we will do is add an import for Qt Quick controls, as well as set the component behavior to bound. Next, we will start creating our model. To do this, we will add a ListModel component, giving it the ID contacts model. The list model is meant to contain a series of ListElement components, so we will need to populate this model with those components. To start, we will add a single ListElement component, which will represent a contact in our contacts application. The ListElement component defines roles as properties which can be whatever we want, as long as they start with a lowercase letter and have types of either strings, booleans, numbers, or enumeration values. We will define the roles to be first name, last name, age, and phone number, as this is some common information we might find in a typical contacts application. We will also assign each of these roles a made-up value for demonstration, but this would, of course, be real data in an actual contacts application. We will then repeat this ListElement component for 2 additional contacts, giving us 3 example contacts. With that done, our model is complete. So the next thing to add is the component which will serve as the delegate for our list view, giving this an ID of contacts delegate. This delegate will contain both a rectangle and text component. The rectangle component will be the background of each contact entry, so we will give it a fixed height of 50 and anchor its width to its parent, as well as give it a border, so this is a clear separation between the contacts entries. The text component will display all the relevant text information from our model, so we will anchor it to the left side of its parent and give it a slight margin, so it is not too close to the edge. Next, we need to populate the text component with the data from our model. To do this, we will add required properties to the delegate. These properties have the same names as the roles defined in the list elements of our model. These properties will contain the corresponding values from our model, adjusting for which delegate they are referencing. Since there are a total of 3 elements in our model, this delegate will be repeated 3 times, and therefore each of these properties could contain one of 3 different values depending on which delegate they are referencing. In the text component, we will set the text property to contain arguments containing the required properties and thus display the model's information as text. With that done, our delegate is complete, so all we need to do now is create our ListView component. We are keeping it simple at this stage. So the only properties we will set for now will be the model, which will be set to our contacts model, and the delegate, which will be set to our contacts delegate. We will also set the list view to fill its entire parent. Running our application, we can see all the model information is being displayed as defined in the delegate and repeated for each element in the model. With that, we have a simple but functional model view delegate architecture set up. Now that we have our basic list working, let's make it look a lot better. We're going to customize our list view using headers, footers, highlights, and sections. The first customization we will make will be to add a header and a footer to our list view. To do this, we will set the header and footer properties of the list view to their own components. Starting with the component for the header, we will create a component with a rectangle and text components inside it. This rectangle will appear at the top of the list view, so we will give the rectangle a unique color and size so it will stand out. Then we will set the text property of the text component to contacts list to serve as a title for our view and make the text size slightly larger than the text of our contacts elements to make it distinct. Next, we will create our footer component. This will be identical to our header component, except we will make it slightly thinner, and it won't have any text, since it only needs to clearly indicate the end of our list. Then, all we need to do is set the header and footer properties of our list view to the IDs of these components, and we will have successfully added our header and footer. Running our application, we can see we now have a header and footer for our contacts list. Next, we will set up a highlight for the currently selected element of our list. By default, the list view comes with keyboard controls that work with the arrow keys. These controls allow us to move through the current index of the list. However, we currently have no way of showing what the currently selected item is. This is what the highlight property is for, as it allows us to specify how the current index should appear. The highlight property takes a component which will appear over the current index on the list view. So, we will create a component with a slightly translucent rectangle in it which will appear on top of our current index. It is important that we set the Z property to 2, because by default it will appear behind the delegates in the view. We now need to set component. With our highlight we will also specify the highlight to follow the current index. We will adjust the move and resize durations, so the highlight appears to move instantly. Lastly, we will set the focus of the list view to true to allow for keyboard input. Running the application, we can see the current index of our view is highlighted in yellow, and we can adjust the current index using the up and down arrow keys. With the highlight working, we will add one final customization in the form of sections. Sections will separate the elements of our list into distinct parts based on a common property. For this example, we will create sections based on the last name of the contacts in our model, so we will have separate sections for each family. To do this, we will first need to add some additional elements to our model, so we have enough data to warrant these sections. We will simply copy some additional list elements into the model. We now have contacts which belong to 3 different families: the Doe family, the Smith family, and the Wolf family. So we will add sections which will divide our contacts list based on the last name of the contacts. Like with the highlight, header, and footer, we need to create a component which will serve as the section header. In this component, we can add the required property section, which will contain the value of the model property we choose. So we will add a component with a rectangle and text, which will use the section property to display the name of the family in each section. With that added, we can now define which component should be used as the section delegate in the view. We will also define which role should be used as the section property, which in this case is the last name. Running our application, we can see we now have sections for each family in our contacts model. We now have a customized model view architecture. That wraps up our first video. We've gone from an empty QML project to a fully customized list view with headers, footers, highlight selection, and family-based sections. In the next video, we'll make this list interactive, adding mouse controls, model editing functions, and smooth animations when elements are added. See you there.